Sweet. Oh, wait. I forgot. This particular setup, I don't need a full screen. We're getting the hang of this. Let me tell you. Any day now, we're going to be so pro at this. Okay. And then we scooch this over. It's about, yeah, about there. There we go. And then we hide this. Perfection. All right, sweet. So.
Oh, I just realized something. On the stream, I'm tiny.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, hold on. How about now?
I'll give it a second. It's catching up.
Ta-da! All right, good. We're so pro. All right. So now that now that our tech team has taken care of all that, because we're too cool to do the tech ourselves. Obviously, we got a tech team. Let's jump into this thing. So last week we talked about homebrew versus not homebrew, and then we went and played some Cyberpunk Red. And I will be honest, Cyberpunk Red is the first non-Dungeons and Dragons tabletop I have played in years. I walking it back through time. I've been playing fifth edition. I played tested fifth edition. I played a hell of a amount of fourth edition, and then before fourth edition, I was playing Pathfinder, first edition, and then before that, I was playing 3.5, and then I was playing Exalted, which is a anime-infused fantasy tabletop using the D10 system from World of Darkness, and that was bananas. And then there was third edition, and then there was Vampire the Masquerade and that whole World of Darkness scenario, and then there was Dungeons and Dragons second edition. So like, or I guess Skills and Powers, and then Dungeons and Dragons. So walking all the way back in time, and then I tried a few things in between. I tried GURPS, which was just way too rules heavy for me to give a shit about. And I tried the original first edition Dungeons and Dragons. Gosh, were there any others? I tried a lot of different flavors of D20. So when third edition came out and it released the D20 system as an open gaming license, which is what spawned Pathfinder, it also spawned a Star Wars D20 system. It also spawned Urban Arcana, which was a Roll20 modern system. There was a lot of like flavors of Roll20 to play, but systems-wise, I don't think I've tried too many. I tried Fate, and I really enjoyed Fate. Fate's very simple. I've tried live action Vampire the Masquerade, which is basically Theater of the Mind meets LARPing, and then you do paper, rock, scissors to handle any conflicts.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the one thing they don't tell you about when they're dressing up as werewolves and vampires and being total badass nerdy guys. Did I check out the Marvel one? I definitely didn't check out the Marvel one.
Oh yeah, the Marvel one that Orf was trying to set up a one shot for. I wanted to join it, but I didn't have time. The timetable didn't work out for me.
All right,
I want to try that. It's a D6 system.
So that brings us to some pretty good, a pretty good opener. Why are people playing 5e? My theory, and we've talked about this before, is Critical Role. Critical Role, they switched from Pathfinder to 5th edition D&D. They got popular, people got into it, and now it's got the largest population of players. And in order to play a multiplayer tabletop game, you need people to play with. Anybody that's tried to play an online video game that doesn't have a very good user base, you understand the hurt and the sadness of just not being able to fill a group, not being able to fill a raid group, not being able to get people together to play. It sucks. And Path of Least Resistance, it's very easy to go and find people that want to play 5th edition because it's the hottest, biggest tabletop game right now. Does that make it the best? Of course not. It doesn't make it the best.
So for me, the first time I got exposed to tabletop RPGs was actually Fate. It was somebody was doing an online, tabletop game. It was Star Wars based. They were using Fate, and I was like, oh man, this is cool. What is this? Oh, it's called Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, I'm gonna go find out what Dungeons and Dragons is. So that's what happened.
Fair.
So yeah. And that's the thing when you talk about tabletop RPGs, the word tabletop RPG and Dungeons and Dragons is almost synonymous in like
like
the
a
people
like a
outside.
Kleenex, yeah, like a Kleenex
Yeah,
is
like a
is a
Q-tip.
tissue or Q-tip, right? But that's not what
Yeah,
they are. It's a cotton swab. It's
yeah,
it's not a Kleenex, it's tissue. It's not a Band-Aid, it's a bandage,
yeah,
right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So it's become like a literal household name
Yep.
for the type of activity you're doing. Like when I
Hmm.
was a kid, in every video game system, when the boomers described any video game
Nintendo.
system, it was Nintendo, right? You're on the
Yeah, the Nintendo.
Nintendo again. You playing the Nintendo, and you try to be like, no, it's the Genesis. They're like the
Mm.
band. It's like, oh man. Uh,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
made a Nintendo about Genesis. It's like, oh my god. Yeah, you handheld
Yeah.
Nintendo. Yeah. So
That's kind of that. I mean,
yeah,
that's for me. I didn't know. I really didn't understand there was other systems other than Dungeons and Dragons. I thought tabletop RPGs was Dungeons and Dragons
fair.
until I actually got got into the hobby. But yeah, in terms of like trying out new systems and seeing all the options out there, I mean, there's a lot. There's actually a lot. There's a lot of different systems once you look at it.
Mhm.
But because of the whole household name thing,
Yeah.
it's Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what you think when you think of tabletop RPGs. That's what you think of. Like even on Twitch, everybody where they're playing, no one goes to the tabletop RPG category. They go to the Dungeons and Dragons
Right,
category
right, right. I was
when they're
just listening earlier. I was just listening to Dungeons and Daddies, my favorite
Mhm.
tabletop podcast, right? And they claim to be playing Dungeons and Dragons, but they're not really playing Dungeons and Dragons. They're playing the loosest, roughest, most rule of cool, theater of the mind Dungeons and Dragons ever, but it's marketable to say that they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. So they say they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but they're not really playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Mhm.
Yeah. And because they're popular, because they're cool, and because it attracts more people to play real Dungeons and Dragons, everybody's okay with it, right? Like, oh yeah, of
Yeah.
course you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Wink. Yeah. Adventure Zone. I felt like Adventure Zone was at its best when it was pretending to play Dungeons and Dragons, and then they were like, Dungeons and Dragons is kind of lame. We're gonna make up our own rules. We're gonna make up our own game. We're gonna try these different systems and do that. And the diehard fans stuck with it, but I feel like most people were like, "Cool," but I'm gonna go listen to a different podcast that actually plays Dungeons and Dragons. There is that magic to it, right? Like because it's so popular, because it's such a household name, because it's been around for 50 years, because, right?
Mhm.
It's hard to pull away from that.
Yeah.
I've had a number of excuses about why I haven't switched, and that's kind of the next thing. What do you think people's excuses are for not trying other things besides Dungeons and Dragons?
Getting people to play it. Like, so you have the one person who's like, I want to try something different, and then all the people they play with are like, well, I still like playing Dungeons and Dragons, and usually it's like the person who plays it a lot is the one who wants to switch, whereas the other people like they don't play Dungeons and Dragons that often, but they might play they might have had two characters their entire thing, and like, well, I still have a lot of stuff I haven't done in Dungeons and Dragons, so I want to keep playing this. I understand this. And also, I don't want to read a book.
Fair. Okay. And we have an example in chat. Caden X asked about the Marvel game. I'm like, hell no, right? And then Orpheus is like, I have it. I want people to play it. Can't get anybody to play it. There you go. Like, why? Why not? What are the excuses here? And yeah, I get it. People are busy. If you think about the people who play D&D, how many of them even know what the hell they're doing, right? Like Critical Role, they play every week, sometimes twice a week if there's a promotional thing going on. They write books for the game, well, Matt does and his writers. But the players themselves, right? Half the time they don't know what the hell they're doing. These are people who get paid to play every week. Don't remember the rules. Don't remember their bonuses. Don't remember how their classes work. What are we supposed to expect from like the average player if the professional players can't even remember how to play the goddamn game? You know what I'm saying? Mercer's considered one of the best DMs in the whole world. He doesn't remember all the rules to the game. There's a lot of rules, right? So the argument that like, well, 5e is simple, I don't think that holds weight. Because it's not really simple. Because
It's not as simple as that. That's what I know.
Right, exactly. Fate is simple. Like, Fate's pretty simple. Star Wars Beyond the Edge of the Galaxy or whatever, that's pretty simple. Saying that 5th edition is simple, nah, that doesn't really hold any weight. I don't think so. Whatever they're trying to do with 1D&D, maybe that'll be simple, but I wouldn't say that 5e is particularly simple. Is it more simplistic than other systems? Absolutely, but it's certainly not a simple system, or everybody would understand it, right? I play, God, what, five times a week for the last, I don't know, 6 years, right? That seems like a lot. So 5 times a week at 4 hours, that's 20 a week. So that's like 20 times 50. What's that? 1,000. So I've played, and then you add in the marathons. Let's just say I've played 7,000 hours of Dungeons and Dragons. Actual playtime, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, not like the prep time and listening to videos about it and reading the rules and listening to rules discussions and listening to actual plays that other people have done. So all together, let's just say in the last 6 years, I've put 10,000 hours, 20,000 hours into 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and I still don't have every single rule memorized. I still don't make every rules call exact or precise. I still don't mental math out every encounter's like CR properly, or throwing CR out the window. I don't even math out the DPS and the numbers of my own party against the challenges that I choose for them. Sometimes mistakes still get made. Players still make mistakes that sometimes cost them their lives. We play a lot and we still mess up. Is it really? Oh, I forgot to. We're in a spooky sound. Just hold on.
Oh.
Let's see.
Music.
We got to put on our Wii music. There we go. I'll fire the tech guy for that. All right.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we're playing all this game, all this 5th edition. We're putting all this work into it, and we still don't have it all right. So is it that simple if we're still all screwing it up? No, it's not that simple, but it is what we know. And so like every argument that I make for Crash, why don't you run a Pathfinder 2 game? Crash, why don't you run a World of Darkness game? You say you miss World of Darkness. Why don't you play in a World of Darkness game? Why don't you try Cyberpunk Red? Cyberpunk's real hot right now. I bet if you ran a Cyberpunk campaign, it would be really, really popular. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you reach out to Paizo, do a Pathfinder 2 official sponsored game? Why don't you do any of this stuff? And I have a million excuses to say, I don't have time to learn the new system. I don't want to risk learning a new system and then screwing up the rules, right? Because I play so much 5th edition D&D, I can call to mind the rules and the mechanics very simply. And I just, with everything that I have going on in my day job, with web accessibility and things like that, and all the rules I have to keep straight for that, I just worry about having another set of rules that I have to manage. Because I do feel that part of being a competent game master is knowing the rules well. I do feel that. I know that that's not a popular take, but I do feel that in order to referee the game, because that's one of the major jobs of the game master, is to referee the game. Referee needs to know the rules. And I feel like if I were to run a game in another system, I would be doing that game and the people who are investing their time in that game a disservice if I didn't feel that I was confident and fluent in the rules. Not just knowledgeable of the rules. I want to be fluent of the rules. When I started running paid games, I went through 5e boot camp. I listened to all sorts of videos about the most commonly missed rules, the biggest mistakes that you make in the rules, discussions of how stealth worked, discussions of how skills should be used in social encounters, the whole Matt Colville How to DM series, everything. I was consuming everything to make sure that when we were at the table, a minimal amount of time was wasted looking up rules. I wanted to make sure. Yeah.
To add to that, there was stuff out there for you to watch so that you can learn about that for D&D.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
There's not a lot of stuff out there for the other systems that you can go and learn and get so in touch into the knowledge of the rules and how the system is played and stuff like that you can feel confident.
Yeah.
So that makes it even harder to switch too.
Right. People who are just oh, you should just switch. Oh, you don't like this? You should just switch. Oh, you want to try, you want it to be different? You should just switch. And it's that's saying oh, you're not happy with America? Just move to another country. It's like, okay, cool. There's a little bit more to it than just like packing my bag and hopping on an airplane, right? Like, you need a passport. You need to research what countries you can actually move to legally. You got to make sure that you have a job lined up when you get there. You got to figure out what the property laws are like. Can you buy property? Can you rent property? Like, what are you going to do when you get there? You can't just be like, okay, and then, boop, there you go. You solved all your problems. That's just not how it works, you know? Like, in order to be a player, you just have to show up. But in order to be a game master, you need to invest in the system. You got to invest time and money and effort. You have to be mentally and emotionally invested in the product to run it well, period. That's how I feel. And so that is the main reason for me that I continue to just run 5th edition games. It's not because I don't like other systems. I love all these other systems. I think they're amazing. That's why we're having this talk right now, because after sitting through the very long tutorial session for Cyberpunk, all I could think about all week was how fun that system was. Like, how interesting and how well they handled things that could be handled in 5th edition, but they couldn't be handled as well, right? They built this specifically to feel like you're playing in a cyberpunk setting, right? They built this to accomplish that particular feeling. And
the system is the setting as well.
Exactly. D&D is more Swiss Army knife, right? And it is definitely has a quote-unquote stronger combat system than it has a social system. And it definitely has an unbalanced combat system that everyone is waking up to. And that is, spellcasting versus melee. It's not great. It's not a perfect system. But what I run into, and I was discussing this with my kid, because they run into this as well, people find out you play D&D. And then you say one thing about D&D that you don't like. And they're like, well, you should try Pathfinder 2. And it's like, cool. But here's the thing, right? I worked hard to cook this dinner, okay? And then if I'm like, damn, you know what? This dinner needs a little bit of salt. And I reach for the salt shaker. You don't tell me, hey, man, maybe you should just cook a different dinner. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why would I start all over? Like, I already made dinner. I just need to add a little salt and it's good to go. Like, why would I do everything over again? It's ridiculous. Like, it blows my mind. Like, but that's the take, right? The take is like, oh, it's just, just play this instead. It's like, cool. Okay, I've spent, as I've established, thousands of hours on this particular craft, of this particular system, of this particular tool. And you're like, cool, but you should just do this. And it's like, like, I get it. Like, a really good musician might have an instrument that they're the best at. But because they're a good musician, they understand music, right? So if you said, hey, the bassist is out, a guitarist could probably play the bass without much issue. They're not going to be as good, maybe, as if they played the guitar, but they're going to be able to do it. And so, yeah, if there's a similar system, I could probably run that similar system. I could probably give you, a good time. We could probably have a nice time playing that. It's going to be a little bit harder for me, right? Because it's going to be different than what I'm used to. But if it's a radically different instrument, right? If I'm a guitar player and you're like, hey, man, can you play this piano? I'm going to be like, probably not. I don't think, maybe I could make some noise come out, but I'm not going to be able to do a good job with it. Like, it just feels careless of people to just be like, oh, well, you should just switch systems. Like, it just feels disrespectful to people's time, To me.
Yeah.
To me.
I guess on the flip side of that, and maybe a little devil's advocate, it's more of I guess it's the way they're saying it. Like, usually it's like offhanded like that. That's not very that good. But like the idea of that. Okay, I know you have these issues, but this other system here is pretty interesting. Why don't you try it out? And it's a lot of times it's people because they play this system and they want people to play that system because nobody else plays it.
Right. And if they could get, and that's why the Pathfinder kids are so evangelical, right? Like yeah. They're out there preaching the word. They're trying to convert you over because they need people to play with.
Yeah, and if I was on that side, I was always trying to tell people to try and come join because I want more people to play with. But I don't think I would ever say you should switch. I say you should also play this. Try it out.
Right. And that's the thing.
Switching is the wrong word. It's more of a, hey, come over here too.
I would love to play Pathfinder 2 with a competent dungeon master who knows the rules and is a good storyteller. I would love that. That sounds amazing. But I don't think that I'm going to be that anytime soon. And I don't think that I have the time to become that anytime
I guess
soon.
on your end too, it's like this is like a somewhat of a business for you. Like
Right.
switching is not a thing you can do. It's not just for fun. It's not like, hey, we just hang out every couple of days and play games. So why don't we stop playing a different game?
Yeah.
So like if it was like just just a group of friends who like play Dungeons and Dragons every 2 weeks or something like that, and they just are just hanging out to play games, having them, hey, here's a new system. Why don't we just try and learn it this week?
Yeah, I can see that.
At that point, I think it's okay. But yeah, if you're doing this as like a profession or like a professional thing that you're trying to provide a service, yeah, just switching like that is going to be very difficult because there's no way you're going to be confident enough to provide the same service that you normally do, and under this new system without having time to learn it and stuff like that.
See, that's super insightful. Because yeah, if I think back and remember a time when I didn't have to take it all so seriously, absolutely, yeah, I wouldn't hesitate to get a bunch of friends and be like, hey, I read most of the book. Let's go ahead and give this new system a shot. Like, yeah.
During that time of play, you'll be like, okay, hold on, let me look it up, and you go open the book. You all will like have like all looking up the rules at the same time and like, okay, here, I found it. This is what you're supposed to do.
But if I'm charging people, right, and their time is money, essentially, they don't want to spend 2.5 hours of a 3.5 hour session having to look up rules, right? They came here to play. They want to play the game. But with a casual group, a free group, friend group, whatever, everybody has those expectations up front. Like, oh, okay, we're all learning this new system together. Like on Sunday, like none of us were like, damn, Dom, like you're wasting our goddamn time because you told us up front, I haven't run it before, I'm learning it, let's learn it together. And we all went in with that positive attitude, like, okay, cool, let's figure it out.
And that's another reason why I said, this is an extra life game. I'm not charging for it. Just donate whatever you want to charity to get in.
Yeah, I can see that. So like, wow, you're breaking down my excuses here now, because I could technically, in my free time, start like a cash group, like Remy's doing, and just kind of say, hey, this is for free, but we're gonna figure this out together.
Yeah, and
in the background,
you're not charging people that, but it's also helping you learn the system that eventually, yeah, you could charge for this.
Yeah, true. Good points. Good point. Well said.
Yeah.
So on that note, Cyberpunk. I was enjoying it. I will admit I was incredibly jealous of Leah's character. I feel like Leah's character was the exact character that I would want to play in any game ever. A charismatic cult leader, definitely that with actual cult leader mechanics.
Yep.
I was blown away. By that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is Remy charging? Really, Orpheus? Wow. I don't know if I would pay for no tutorial. I don't know. Gotta think about that. While Dom is living his domestic life, I enjoyed Cyberpunk, but I played this character over here, Sexy Grandma. This is the character I played. Look at that sexy grandma. Wow. And her whole thing is like driving a car. And like I had to actually drive a car. Like I could not drive a car. So as soon as we got in a fight, I gave up 3 rounds of combat to go get my car so I could run people over my car. And Dom was a really good sport about it. And he warped the fabric of time and space to say that I actually had enough time to go get my car and then get back to the fight and run people over with my car, which is like
there's
very
a
nice.
couple. So honestly, also too after that session, I went back. Okay, there's some things I had to like make on the fly because I wasn't sure of other rules. So I went back and looked at them, and for the most part, we were okay. I realized that you actually still have to make the -8 for aim shots, even if the car is stationary. The only thing is that for melee, since it's like an opposed check, the card can't roll the check because it's an inanimate object. It's always going
Oh,
to aim with melee at a car. You can bust up a car real bad
yeah.
with like a bat or something like that. But shooting it is still you still have the -8.
Oh,
Also,
okay.
your car takes a lot less damage because you have armor on your car.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
like so for me, I watched the anime. I liked the setting, so I was like, okay, this system is about this setting, so let me try it out. I went and looked it up. It's not that different from D&D, so I was like, okay, this will be pretty easy to learn. There's some, the damage is different. The way they do deal damage is different, but it's also very simple in the way that it's just D10s and D6s, and everything's kind of categorized in a way. So what the person who made this was like a economics, one of the people who helped balance out this game. He like does podcasts and stuff like that. And
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
apparently like an economics major. So he was like, you know what, let's make this thing as balanced and as simple as possible and as categorized as possible so that it's easy to pick up and go to because apparently compared to the system before this one, 2020, Cyberpunk 2020,
Yeah, yeah.
which was like came out in like the early 90s, and compared to this one, it's a much more it's a very streamlined version. It's like, I guess the comparison would be like 3.5 to 5e.
Ah, okay, okay. Yeah, I felt like we were all picking it up, pretty quick. So, yeah, I feel like we're picking it up pretty quick, and I do feel like we were having to stop frequently to ask questions and everything, but that's understandable when we're kind of learning the game and learning the system. I am curious, like, what kind of stories and what kind of games could be told
So
in this setting with this system, you know?
so since a lot of people are like getting into it now, and they're like on the Reddit, on the subreddit, there's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so many people are like asking questions, or hey, is there like a adventures made for this? People are asking about that. That's always a question on there. And like the thing about this system is that it's not you're not heroes. You're not the system's not being about being an adventurer and going and saving the world.
This is just
Or
about
doing anything
living
that
in
big.
this world.
It's about surviving in this world.
Yeah.
And so the whole point of like one of the main goals about this game is to like, make sure you have enough money to live day to day. And some people joke and call it's a poverty simulator.
Oh.
So the idea is like you're trying to make money for rent to rent. You're dealing with some of the adventures. Like I got the one adventure book that they have published, which is just a series of missions.
Yeah.
And those missions might span a few days or or like maybe a couple sessions, but it's just one mission.
But
So,
there's
like,
no like overarching narrative.
yeah. No, so far I haven't found anything that has like a full-on overarching narrative
Oof.
story. No one has seemed to make that. I haven't
Yeah.
seen any Games Guild stuff like that.
Well, what is
Mostly-
what is the stance on third party publishing though, right? Like
So
open game license encourages people to do that, but does Cyberpunk Red have an open game license?
So they seem to be really into you making a lot of their stuff is all about you making your own. So they rather have a DM make up a story for their system inside their setting. They give you all the stuff that you need for the setting.
But what about
They
that
say-
DM sharing out their story with others?
That's fine. Just the things you can't do is you can't copy exactly stuff that's inside the book. So like
Gotcha.
like this system, the system here has all the items in it, but all the items descriptions are just a brief description and tell you what book reference to go to.
Oh. Okay.
So like they're like, okay, yeah, you can, there's basic ammo and there's this shotgun and there's this type of weapon, and the weapon will say it does this mechanically, but if you need any more information about it, you have to go to this page in the book.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
so,
Gotcha.
but like you can't copy stat blocks and stuff like that. They don't want you doing that. Any of the things that you would need to, any of the content needed to run the game,
Yeah.
that you would want to, you need to have the book for. And they only have one core book.
Ah. Now, see, something that I played that this kind of reminded me of a little bit was Shadowrun. So Shadowrun was another. It was a cyberpunk, but it was a sci-fantasy cyberpunk setting. So the idea was there was orcs and elves and trolls and all that kind of stuff, but they're in the near far future, and you have all the same stuff of like net runners and cyborgs and all that, but then you also have magic kind of added in there as well. And
Mhm.
one of my fondest memories of a story that was ever told was there was a video game version of Shadowrun. And
Oh
the
yeah.
whole time you're talking about, you keep talking on the phone with this bad guy, and you've screwed him over, and he's after you. And at the very end of the game, you finally meet this dude, and he's a red dragon. And I was like that was just like the craziest reveal. It was so cool because you're like
Yeah.
in the future, you've got guns, you got shotguns, you're fighting
Yeah.
cyborgs, but then the
Hey, the best
final
of both
boss,
worlds.
yeah, and then the final boss is still an ancient red dragon because why wouldn't the corporation, big greedy corporation be run by an ancient red dragon? I mean, that's
Yeah.
just checks out.
Hmm.
Um, and so, like, thinking about how, like, Cyberpunk is, I don't know. I don't know if I could enjoy just running a slice of life. I feel like I'd want
But it's
to
not. The thing is,
have.
it wouldn't be slice of life because the way the way they kind of pitch this is that when you create a character, they have a huge list of tables and stuff like that you
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
answer
yeah.
for your character, and that's you can see it on your if you open up a character sheet. I rolled it out for everybody. So you got to have enemies, you got to have loved ones, you got to have stuff like that. And as a GM, I'm supposed to take all that stuff from each of my characters and fit them in to everything that they do.
Oh,
And
build.
so
So it is super
it's
character driven.
yeah, it's always a character-driven
Okay.
story. So like you know how what you did for Skull and Shackles, where almost everything was every character's backstory.
Right, right,
They
right.
want you to do that for all the campaigns in here.
Man, I just view it as such an intriguing challenge, and it's such a good setting. The other thing that I didn't like about it is I felt like I wanted the setting from 2077. I didn't want like the red setting. Like I didn't like how it was. It felt more like Fallout and less
Yeah.
like, yeah, and less like Cyberpunk. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I felt like it
Mhm.
was too. There was too many limitations put in there deliberately in the design that it just didn't feel as connected, right? Like
So
in
I
Cyberpunk
will
2077, when you're playing it, you just always feel connected to everything that's going on because of the net and stuff like that. And I just feel
yeah.
like that felt kind of bad not to have.
So it can get to that point if you spend the time to put the cyberware in your body, but it's not like
Right,
a consistent thing. Like if you want the being able to just talk to your friend, talk to your crew all the time. I mean, get an internal agent, and
right, right, right.
and they're not hard to get. It's just that you have to you don't start with it unless you make. And also you're playing like these starter characters that they made.
Yeah,
A lot
yeah.
of times when you make a starter character, you have chances to like start off with stuff, and you can start off with an internal agent and be able to do that. And the way the agents are worked out is that it is like Cyberpunk 2077, where like their face pops up, and
Yeah,
they
yeah,
like
yeah.
they talk. You can program it to have like an AI inside of it that like as like your personal butler, like Jarvis or something like that. That's all in this system in this setting, but it's not like the everyday thing.
Right.
You have to go and
And
build.
I understand design wise why they would kind of choose this era in the history of the
Mhm.
world because I think it makes for an easier setting to tell a tabletop story in.
Yes.
Because part of why people shy away from playing games in the modern world is like think about Witchlight Isekai when you guys went back to the real world, and I just was like, we're just doing everything theater of the mind
And that's
because
the actual
like
thing for this
yeah,
this system. Most people play Theater of the Mind. I try and look up actual plays, and almost every single actual play is Theater of the Mind or Roll 20. They're on Roll 20, and they like show up a map, but they're not using the map as with minis. They're just using it to see stuff.
right to maybe measure distances and stuff like that, right? Or not even just to
Not
just to
even
have
that. Not
like
even that.
a
Yeah.
like a role
Just
playing
have
background.
just they use
Like
a map as a role playing background.
okay, again, like what we were doing when we did the modern day stuff in our Witchlight game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's a huge thing for World of Darkness as well. Is like it's just always been like that. It's always just been kind of theater of the mind. There was never really a need or to do that. I remember going from playing D&D to play World of Darkness, and the groups that I played with, I was like, "You guys don't use minis?" And they're like, "Why would we use minis?" I was like, "Well, you don't. I mean, how do we know where everything is?" They're like, "Well, you just pay attention." Like we're all, like when the game master says this guy is, standing across the room and the room's 30 feet, you assume that he's, 20 to 30 feet. I'm like, assume. I need to know exactly how many feet away he is. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, but it could work, and we see that it, proof of concept. I hope you guys have seen in Witchlight that Theater of the Mind does work, and that you can have a great time playing D&D, and that the rules still come into play, and that should apply to other settings.
So the way the Cyberpunk in their core book, the way they kind of spell it out is that you would want to do Theater Mind for pretty much everything. And then when combat starts, have a battle map just for when the combat starts.
Right.
Not getting into the combat, but when the combat starts, that's the battle map. So like a lot of their battle maps that they've offered for the things are like, they don't have like they might have like the building, but they won't have just the immediate outside of the building. They'll just have the inside of the building. So that's where you'll be when actual combat starts. Things like that. Like
set piece battles too.
Yes,
right.
And also because the way the system works, it's a lot of like healing is very dangerous. It's very hard in the system. You only heal like based off of your stat per day. So like you have like 40 HP, but if your body stat is like 5 and your will stat is like 4, you're only healing 9 HP per day. So yeah, so at that time you want downtime, and during that downtime, there's a lot of stuff you can do because you're in a city.
Yeah,
it's modern, but all that will probably most likely be Theater of the Mind.
And it definitely feels like, again, how we did with Witchlight Isekai is you're avoiding the fights for the most part, because in a crowded city that has like laws and shit, right? Like actual enforced laws. You're trying not to get into a bunch of fights. When I played Waterdeep Dragon Heist, a D&D game, we tried not to get into too many fights because we didn't want to get arrested. Right? You're gonna get arrested if you get in a fight in the middle of Waterdeep. They're not gonna be like, oh, you're the main characters, my bad, and then like walk away. They're gonna arrest you for fighting in the middle of Waterdeep. And it's the same idea, right? Like if you're playing in a more modern game or in a near future or far future game, yeah, you can't just be like, oh yeah, okay, we'll just fight these dudes. Now
that's kind of why they set up this whole combat zone area, because like that area, that's lawless whatever territory where like police don't go there because it's a combat zone. No one goes there. People live there. There's still people live there, and everybody who's living there has a gun on them with them and walking around in armor because they know it's dangerous. So that's part of the reason why this setting kind of works like this. Like in the game Cyberpunk, 2077, like you walk around with your gun out and you can shoot somebody and police show up, maybe.
right.
Yeah.
Only if they're like insured or something. Yeah.
And the same thing over here. Like they have trauma team is in here. You can actually buy trauma team if you want.
Right.
To come in like if you're in the combat zone and you're like getting blown down and hurt, there's a cyberware that lets you monitor your health so that it can send it to trauma team if something happens. So there's all the things that you think about in Cyberpunk 2077 could be in here but you have to work for it.
So let me ask you a crucial question here.
Yeah.
When you were planning to play this, when your love of Cyberpunk overcame your senses and you were like, I have to run some tabletop with this setting. Like I love this setting so much, I have to do this. The anime made me cry so much, and now I have to do this for Rebecca. All right, so like I remember on the server we're like, should I just change 5e or should I take the dive and should I learn the system? Like you were kind of conflicted about what direction to go. Having made the decision to learn the system, do you feel that you could have run as good a game, as flavorful a game, if you had just reskinned 5? No,
not me. I'm pretty sure somebody could, but I'm not that creative. I'm good at solving issues. I'm not good at making stuff up, if that makes sense.
Now
for me, I think it's better having the setting and giving me the stuff to work with. I'm glad I went in this direction.
See, that's fantastic to hear. Yeah,
trying to reflavor 5e to this. Maybe I could have did it, but it would have been a lot more work. And I don't think I could have done it without. What would have happened? I would have went and saw this setting, saw all the stuff here, and just took stuff from here that I thought can work, and try and stuff it into 5e. And at that point, why don't I just maybe take the small things that I like from 5e and bring it over to here?
Right.
Because I could bring over to here. I could bring one of the big things that's been happening, this happens all the time on the Reddit subreddit, are people asking about the San Devistan from the anime and how it's not like that in this game. Like in this game, it just gives you a +3 to your initiative.
Oh, but they want you to go like super fast.
They want you like to get extra turns or
like
stuff
Speed
like that.
Force. Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. So people are like, oh, maybe this game doesn't have bonus action. So people are like, maybe you get an extra action.
Maybe, it'd be a fun house rule. Succeeding at a cost. I'm just saying.
So
yeah. We were all missing that. We were all missing that.
Yeah, you guys are all, but they kind of have a thing in there. Luck, and
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
With here, a lot of people have homebrew that you can add luck after the fact at double the cost, which I think is a good. Which I like. I like
that.
That's why I said we can go with that. One thing about here too is that they don't. You cannot, and this is something I made a mistake with while we were playing. You're not allowed to ready actions past a round. So if you're at the bottom of initiative, you can't. There's no point in readying an action because it's going to go away.
Oh, that's interesting. So a round is a complete switchover.
Yeah, and so the reason why they do that is because they want people who have a higher initiative to have the advantage.
Oh, wow.
Because solos have a whole ability that lets them boost initiative. The cyberware is there for you to boost your initiative.
So that in a way is simulating the Sandevistan on the anime, right?
Yes. That's how they do it. Because when you win initiative, you have an advantage because you can ready stuff, you can shoot, get into cover, and the person who while you're in cover can't ready an action shoot you while you get out because after the round is over, they can't that doesn't happen anymore. They can't ready it for a round. So yeah, it's very devastating if you're not higher in initiative, and that's why there's so many abilities that boost your initiative. And so I was thinking, okay, if we were to do active initiative in this, I don't know if that would work in the system.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be. I don't think it needs to be in the system though. Yeah. I think if you wanted to make it a little spicy, you could do a fresh roll every round. You could say,
you could.
Every combat round you do a fresh roll. That would be a good way to keep it a little spicy. Then a person isn't punished for the entire combat, and we already established that combats don't happen very frequently. Yeah. So you don't want to be last initiative all the time. Yeah.
And the person who has a San Devistan or is a solo that has their ability to boost their initiative, they still have that boost when they.
Yeah, they're more than likely going to win that initiative almost every time, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially since the spread here isn't a D20, it's a D10. So you're much more likely to do that.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing here, all right, my earlier analogy, I just finished cooking my dinner. It's beautiful. I learned how to make this recipe. I made it really well. Oh, needs a little salt. Don't tell me to make my dinner all over again. I'm just going to put a little salt on here. Here, in that instance, right? In that instance, I don't need to change everything I'm doing because I don't like one or two things, right? I just need to adjust the things that I need to adjust. My group doesn't like a lot of combat. Here's the crazy shit. I'm just gonna run less combat. They want to have more roleplay. We're gonna run a little more roleplay. That's not a problem with the system. That's just adjusting the system to the taste of your group. Here's the thing about taste, though, right? I wouldn't go to McDonald's to get sushi. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if I want sushi, I'm not even gonna go to the grocery store to get grocery store sushi. I'm gonna go to a nice sushi restaurant. So in this instance, you wanted Cyberpunk. So you didn't go to Dungeon McDonald's, right? And try to have Cyberpunk there. You went to Cyberpunk to play Cyberpunk because it was built to create that experience. The sushi was made to be sushi, right? Like, it's not like you just went to like Bob Evans and tried to order sushi. Like, yeah.
I didn't go to the buy the fish sandwich
and pretend it was sushi, right?
Go get some rice, cut it up and roll it.
But yeah, I mean that's where we're at. You see what I'm saying? Like, if I wanted to play giant robot game, I would play Lancer. I wouldn't play Dungeons and Dragons and just spend 17 hours making up a giant robot system so that I wouldn't have to learn Lancer.
Somebody already made a robot.
Yeah,
system.
Somebody
go do that.
Right, look at what you're doing. Like, for me, for Divinity game, I was telling my kid, I was like, the best part about this is it's a one shot. So I don't have to make anything balanced. I don't have to worry about any longevity. I don't have to worry about what happened before or what happens after. I can just take Dungeons and Dragons and roughly shape it into Divinity, and it only has to maintain that shape for about 5 hours, and then it can all fall apart. Could I run a Divinity themed campaign using 5e? Yeah. Would it feel like Divinity the whole time? No. It would feel like 5th edition D&D. You know what I'm saying?
I feel like Baldur's Gate.
Right. The flip side there, right? The flip side there is, does Baldur's Gate feel like Dungeons and Dragons? No, it feels like you're playing more Divinity.
It feels like I'm playing more Divinity.
Right. The system is still going to shine through no matter what.
Side note, they're planning to make a little booklet that shows for a supplement for 5e that has all the stuff from
really
Baldur's Gate 3.
Wow. Okay.
They kind of made.
That's interesting. Yeah. But I think that's kind of where I arrive on this kind of conversation of to 5e or to not to 5e. If you feel that what you are attempting to do will not suffer in the long term from being done in 5e, and you think you could do it pretty easily, and you don't have the time, and you don't want to like stress out your players, you don't want to try something else, that's fine. If you really want to, if you want to run your Voltron game in using Dungeons and Dragons, Mage Hand Press, they got a great space Dungeons and Dragons setting called Dark Matter. Knock yourself out, run your Voltron game with Dark Matter, you're good to go. You want to play a dinosaur game? There's a great 5e campaign system. I think it's called Pangea or something like that. Just came out. There you go. You want that Monster Hunter experience? There's a fan-made supplement called, Monster Hunter 5e that we're running on Wednesdays. But there's also Helena's Guide to Hunting Monsters that just came out. An entire campaign built around hunting monsters. You could probably get all the feels, all the stuff that you're looking for in 5e and not worry about it. But do you want a real, authentic experience in X or Y or Z? You might want to bite the bullet. You might want to actually use the correct system to do that. Are you very dissatisfied with 5e, but you still love that kind of fantasy setting, that medieval / Renaissance level fantasy setting? Then maybe it is time to take a break and learn that new system. I mean, if you're consistently unhappy with how D&D is going, and you don't want to homebrew solutions, and you don't want to house rule solutions, you might need to just look hard in the mirror and say, you know what? Maybe it's time, right? So there are a lot of good, there are a lot of good reasons to switch, and there's a lot of good reasons to stay.
And even if, like, just try it out.
Yeah.
You don't have to commit. Just maybe do one shot, and spend the time, do a quick 5-room dungeon or something like that, something small.
Well, the starter boxes, Paizo starter boxes, are to die for. The Pathfinder 1E box set, one of the finest products ever made. It's so good. It's such.
I don't know if they have them, but I would assume. I'm pretty sure most systems have like a starter.
Yeah, like a starter set, thing. A starter kit. I've got Dark Matter. I just mentioned. I have the starter. I have the book, and I have the starter set for it on the shelf behind me. And that's still a 5e system, but it's different enough that they felt that they should have a starter kit for it.
Yeah. Like Cyberpunk has they released it after with the anime. When the anime came out, they didn't have this before, which I feel like probably was a.
It was definitely a misstep on their part, but it was really smart that they timed the release of it to match up with the release of the anime.
They released a thing called Easy Mode, which is just here's a starter kit. It has all the basic stuff. It has some pre-generated characters, and they have a section for GMs only. It's just like here's a starting mission. Try it out. See if you guys like it. It's free. And that's the supplement that you guys were looking at in the primer.
Ah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I enjoyed playing in the game on last Sunday because it reminded me why people play other settings. Because I have gotten I think I had just gotten very defensive, right? Because I felt that I personally couldn't afford the time to switch, right? Because again,
Mhm.
as you said, I have a business built off of this. I run paid games. I make content for this particular type of game. So
Yeah.
like I want, and I'm also really busy with my day job. So like I just don't really feel comfortable trying to like switch, right? But like as you pointed out, you don't have to like switch all at once. You don't have to switch all the way, and you don't even have to do it professionally. You could just be like, "Hey, anybody on the server interested?" And like maybe every 2 weeks we like peck away at like trying to figure out this new system.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. And I definitely felt playing Cyberpunk when I was measuring out distances for guns and stuff like that. I was like, this is so well thought out. Like there's just so much happening here that is trying very hard to capture everything about this setting. Firefights, taking cover, all that. There's no bullshit like sharpshooter feat that just shuts down all of ranged combat. Where you don't have to think about it anymore. There's no like I see you, so you have to make a saving throw. Oh, you failed. You're just completely incapacitated for the whole fight. There's like it felt like the design decisions were made meaningfully to capture one particular feeling, one particular play experience, and that was that cyberpunk experience, which
And
reminded me, yeah,
it can get pretty crazy
yeah,
in higher levels when you're getting all the cyberware and stuff. But like the core like feeling that you're trying to get is baked into the system.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And also it reminded me of the guy that I ran into that was like, let me tell you all about, I play Lancer, and I'm like, tell me everything. And he's describing it, and I was like, well, that doesn't sound like anything that I would enjoy doing. But if I wanted to live out the fantasy of riding around in a giant customizable mech the size of a building, that would be the game that I played, because everything he described sounded like it was made to fulfill that fantasy, the fantasy of being a giant mech pilot and piloting a giant mech, like. And I was like, there's no way that you could make that work in D&D without it still feeling like D&D. It would just be so much work to build that system. Or it would just be like, well, you're just going to play your character, but we're going to call them giant robots. And we're just going to, like, reskin all of your D&D stuff and just say it's giant robot stuff. Not the same. Not the same. Close, but not the same. And so I get that. I get why there's these other systems. I get why people want to play them.
If I went the other direction and went with trying to reskin what you call it 5e, a lot of it was just been, okay, there's this cantrip, what can I rename this cantrip to be to match what's a quick hack in Cyberpunk?
Yeah.
That's what would have happened pretty much.
And then at that point, if you're like, well, I'm going to go ability by ability, and I'm going to redo all the abilities from the video game, and I'm going to redo them so that they're D&D abilities, and it's like, bro, literally $30 on DriveThruRPG. Someone has done all of that already. It's just not D&D, but like they did do all the work of like turning this stuff into game mechanics. Yeah, like yeah. I get it. Yeah. I get it. So I guess that's the big take there in the end is it's okay to keep using 5e as long as everybody's enjoying themselves. But if you have a very specific flavor, a very specific feeling or setting that you're going for, maybe give the system that actually was built for that a chance before being like, nah, dude, I'll just play 5e and just, change everything.
Honestly, it's a lot more work to try and change everything in the 5e than it is to just have a book.
Right? Exactly.
You can look up. You don't have to read all of it. Just look it up as you guys are playing.
Yep. As long as everyone's having fun and it's an equitable play experience, then that is to say mistakes are happening to everybody. Mistakes are happening both ways, and when mistakes are discovered, if they're corrected in the future and all that, I don't see there being a problem with it. The problem comes from the problem for me would come from a person being like, I'm offering to run this game because I'm interested in it, and I know it's hot right now, and I know everybody else wants to try it, And it's like, cool, cool, cool. All right, let's do this. And then the person running the game isn't putting in the work, right? They're not putting in the effort. They're not putting in the work. They don't know the system. They're not making an effort to learn the system. I don't want to play in a game where every session is looking up rules, the DM being unsure of the rules, one person in the group sort of correcting the DM constantly about the rules. Like, that's not what I'm after. Like, I want competency, you know? I want to feel comfortable that whoever is running the game does, in fact, know the game. And I could be in a group like that for a little while as we all learn it together, but it might be unfair of me. But my expectations of the DM is that outside of the game, they're putting in twice as much work, if not more, to learn that system and master the system than the players.
Yeah.
Now, ideally, everybody would be learning it together and helping each other, but, you know, that's not usually what happens with players. So, yeah.
And I will, at least for Cyberpunk Red, they actually like submitted on Drive Through RPG. They have like a kind of like a GM sheet that just has all their basic mechanics all in one thing. And then actually, and when you look at it, it's like, this is actually all the mechanics that are in the game. It's actually pretty simple. And they have it fit in like a 4-page PDF.
I mean, as I tried some again. I played GURPS for a while, and this is and I've also played Rifts, which is like even more complicated than GURPS. Oh my god! And yeah, this is nowhere near that stuff. Nowhere near that stuff. It seemed very elegant. It seemed very well thought out. I would certainly say that it's a bit more complicated than 5th edition D&D, but I wouldn't say it's exceedingly difficult. Right? I wouldn't say that it's much more difficult, and I would say that they have enough similarities that if you are already proficient in D&D, you could probably pick it up pretty easily. So, but yeah, I guess I am kind of curious about this stuff. I just wish there was more time.
I know my next campaign is going to be Cyberpunk because
wow,
I like this. I like the system.
Confidence.
After Monster Hunter, next campaign is going to be Cyberpunk.
I'm excited for you because I feel like this is going to really challenge you as a dungeon master in areas that you are still developing. You know, like for example, Monster Hunter is playing to so many of your strengths. You know, beautiful map design, incredible monster design, running monsters well, combat, like all that is stuff that you're like really, really good at. But also in Monster Hunter, there isn't like a tremendous amount of like dealing with NPCs, navigating like navigating.
All about dealing with NPCs.
Right, exactly. I think that this is going to be such a huge growth opportunity for you.
For me, it'd probably be easier to deal with like a human inside of a post-apocalyptic world than a fantasy character.
I mean, we're almost there right now, so
yeah.
I mean, it isn't that big of a stretch anymore to be like, are we in a cyberpunk dystopia? I don't know. Let me ask the robots that keep my my house running if I'm in a cyberpunk dystopia yet or not. Yeah, but I do think it's going to be a great opportunity for you, and I do think it's going to push you to really grow as a DM, and the fact that it is by the developers, you are told have them make characters first. Here's what I would do. I would get the group together. I would have them make the characters. That would be a whole session. And then we would take like a 2-week break. Maybe even longer than 2 weeks. I don't know. But at least a 2-week break. And during that 2 weeks, I would take the characters that have been developed and I would write the initial story. And then you just kind of build from there. But I honestly wouldn't have anything planned other than I want to have some cool people to play with. And maybe even you get the characters, right? And then you have like 2 weeks of just tutorial sessions where, you know, like in the video game where like T-Bug is like, like I hacked the military program and I'm going to teach you how to do the shit. And you're like, okay.
The first time I ran Dungeons & Dragons for my friends who never played it before.
Yeah.
And I got this actually, I stole this idea from another person, but they always make the first combat like a tutorial, like an in character tutorial mission where like I usually have 3 bandits show up. One bandit named Two, one bandit named Toe, and one bandit named Oriole. So those bandits attack the group, and they actually like explain stuff to them while they're being attacked.
Oh, like now I'm gonna attack you with my ranged attack. It uses my dexterity, like that
Yeah,
kind of
things
thing.
like yeah, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
That's usually what I do if I have people who don't play D&D at all,
I
and
I
try and get
love when
them.
they do that well in a video game too. Like the
Mhm.
example we just gave with
It's
Cyberpunk.
not yeah, it's not
Yeah.
serious at all.
Yeah.
It's completely fourth wall breaking silliness. And then I usually try and make them run away at the end so they show up at some point later on.
Oh, very nice.
Well,
In case you have to introduce new mechanics.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so, and I will say for if I do when I do run this campaign, I'm going to be using the adventure booklet that they release. It's called Tales from the Red, and it's kind of like Candlekeep, where it's a bunch of different non-connected one shots, or not one shots, but like adventures, and those adventures can probably span a couple
Right. And
sessions.
once you know the characters' motivations and their connections
But
and stuff, you could just
in the way
you
they
could
write
slot
their
them into them.
adventures, yeah, the way they write their adventures, they say, okay, maybe you can use a character from their life path here. Maybe you can use a character if you have a tech in the group, maybe this person here might be part of their life path. So because all that stuff is all like the way you make your background is inside the core rulebook, so they know when in their adventures that they write that characters have to have either an enemy or have to have a friend or have to have something like that. And they always say, maybe use it here, maybe use it here.
That's great.
Pick a character stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because with 5e, WotC products, that's one of the first pieces of advice they give people when they're like, cool, let's tackle Curse of Strahd. So in this dungeon is a person they've never met before they don't care about. So take that person out and put one of the NPCs that they met that maybe helped them or that they helped instead. Or, maybe the person that they're looking for in their backstory is the person that's in this cell. Witchlight, for example, there's just a million NPCs that make no sense and they have no connection to anybody or anything. And so a lot of the guides to running Witchlight are just like, hey, all right, in this chapter, you're going to want to swap out this person, this person, this person, this person, and this person for anyone else that would be in any way connected to the story or the characters. I love the fact that these Cyberpunk adventures are built around the idea that, oh, that's going to be there in the first place. Let's go ahead and set up. So,
yeah.
All right, we're at time, and I'm inspired. I'm really happy that you decided to take this journey, and that I was able to kind of try it out, and I'm excited to finish up the tutorial tomorrow. And it's going to take. I mean, I'm probably not going to be able to resist. So if you run it on a day that I am able to play, I will more than likely not be able to resist, and I will try to sign up for your Cyberpunk game. Because I think it's a great setting, and I think it's a nice palate cleanser from playing so much Dungeons and Dragons. And yeah.
And another thing, it's not so different enough that there's enough similarity there to like feel comfortable.
Yeah. All right, man.
Right.
Well, we are not gonna have a formal CRASHDOM Vodcast next weekend unless we just squeeze it in around everything else that's going on, right?
Keep this on the download, but I'm gonna try and request Friday off. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Then we might have it Friday morning to kick off 3 days of extra life.
I can use a 3-day weekend.
Who can't? Yeah. All right. So maybe we'll play it by ear and we'll see how things go.
I'll find out Monday.
All right. Sounds good. So we're gonna adjourn for now. Next week we'll be talking about Extra Life and all the cool stuff we're gonna be doing, and we'll be playing and streaming over 69 hours of games over a 72-hour period. We might even go over 72 hours using the magic of friendship. Actually, we're just going to run many games at the same time, but it sounds cooler when we say that we're going to go over 72 hours in 72 hours. Anyways, look for that next week. Hope everybody has a great week leading up to Extra Life. Don't forget about us, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care.